Baruch Hashem, today's Daf Yomi is, we're recording the Daf Yomi for Shabbos, Zevachim Sadi Zayin, Zevachim 97. Today's Daf Yomi, we're going to start on the bottom, the Mishnah at the bottom of Tzadi Vav, Tzadi Vav, Amabez 96b at the bottom. It says the Mishnah, Ritarfin Omer Bishel Mitchilas Haregel, that if you started cooking at the outset of the festival, Yivashal B'Kol Haregel, then you should cook for the whole festival. Meaning to say that there's a halacha we've been talking about called Mariko Ushtifa. You have to clean the kachim pots after you cook in them. But the whole festival is you don't have to do it. You can do it, start cooking at the beginning of the festival and do the whole festival without doing that. And the Gemara is going to explain why. The Chachamim Adzman Achila Mariko Ushtifa. The Chachamim say you only have until the time where you're allowed to eat it before it becomes expired meat. And once that happens, you have to do the Mariko Ushtifa. And what is this Mariko Ushtifa? Mariko Ushtifa, what is that? Mariko Kamarika Sakos, Ushtifa Kashtifa Sakos. Mariko represents the cleaning out of the inside of the coats, inside of a cup, and Shtifa is the washing of the outside of the cup, like a kosher bracha, like a mitzvah cup that you have to wash out the inside before you make the blessing. And then the Mishnah continues. Marika v'shtifa b'tzonin. Marika and shtifa takes place with cold water. Hashpud v'askoa magilim b'cham. And the spit and the grill, that you have to cleanse with hot water. That you have to kasher with hot water. My time is Rabbi Tarfon. So it says the Gemara on top of 97a. What's the reason for Rabbi Tarfon that you don't have to do Mariko Shtif in the middle of the festival? So the Gemara says, Damakra, it says in the pasuk, Ufanisa ba'boker, that you go that in the morning, come in the morning, that's when you go to your tent, which means to say that the whole festival is one morning. The Torah views the whole festival as one holiday because it's not talking about the Yontif, because you can't go home on Yontif, so the whole festival is one day. And so therefore you're allowed to cook the entire festival without doing Mariko Shtifa. So what do you mean to say there's no pigol? He knows there's no law of expired meat on the festival? That doesn't make sense. Rabbi Tarfon always says with respect to Mariko Shtifa. Doesn't say it by other halachos. Ella kederev Nachman Amarav Barabu, Damar Nachman Barabu, Kol Yom Yom Nasa Gil Chaver. Every single day that you cook in it, you're koshering the expired meat from the earlier time. And so therefore it never has, Rashi says, because every day and in Yontif, everybody's bringing the carbon shlomim. The absorbed meat of it never becomes expired. The time for the shlomim is 2 days. When you cook shlomim today, and then you cook shlomim tomorrow, and it absorbs from the shlomim that was slaughtered on the next day, and will get rid of that which was absorbed the day before. So therefore, it'll never come to noser. And let's say you cooked a chatas, then you have to be very careful, and the Kohanim were careful to cook after it on that day and get rid of the taste of the chatas. Meaning, say each time you cook, it's like kashering it. Chum say until the time of the expiration of the meat. My kamer, what are Chum saying? Amar Nachman Amar Rabua, Mamtin La'atzman Achila, V'Hader Avid La Mariko Shtifa. They say wait until the time where it's going to be expired, where you can no longer eat it, and then do Mariko Shtifa. So, what's the source? I'm Rabbi Yochanan Shem Abba Yossi ben Abba Ksiv Morek V'Shotef. Ksiv, it says Morek V'Shotef in the pasuk by a copper utensil, and it also says Kol Zachar B'Kohanim Yeyachel, that all the males of the Kohanim, Kol Zachar B'Kohanim Yochal Osa Kodesh Kodashim He. So what does that mean? Hakeitzad, meaning to say, why did the pasuk put together that you should wait until why did the pasuk put these two verses together? To tell you, wait until the time of the expiration where you can no longer eat it, and then you should do the marika and the shtifa. Then you do this Mariko Shtifa. Tana Rabbanan Mariko Shtifa B'Tzonin. Divrei Rabbi. Rabbi says the Mariko Shtifa is with cold water. Chachamim Mariko B'Chaman Shtifa B'Tzonin. Chachamim say Mariko is with hot water and Shtifa is with cold water. My time, Mother Rabbanan. What's the reason why I say both are with what's the reason for the Rabbanan that the marikas with hot water and shtifa is with sonin? It says midei dehave agiui ovikum. It's like the koshering that you do if you get a pot from the idolaters. And so therefore, just like when you get it from that there we require hot water, as it says in Sefer Bamidbar, so too here also you require hot water to get rid of the taste of the expired kachim. The Rebbe Armacha Hagol lo kamina. I'm not talking about Hagol, says Rebbe. Ki kamina l'mariko shtifa. The boss or Hagol. He says, yeah, mariko shtifa comes after you already kashered it. Rabbanan inkein lichtov kra o morek. Moreko shotef. But so it would say, so the Rabbanan say, if you're correct, it would either say morak or shutaf or shutaf. The pasuk should have said it shall be the marika and the marika, or it shall be shatifa and shatifa. Meaning to say, if the pasuk is saying that you first have to go under hagala, then it should have said the same thing for both the cold water. Meaning to say, and the fact that it says two different things, it means obviously shmamina marika b'cham and shtifa b'tzom. It means obviously one is with hot water, one is with cold water. The Rebbe, and what would Rebbe say to that? He said, iksiv umorak marak. If it said marak twice, have amina trey zimna marak. I would have thought you have to wash it 2 times with cold water, or trey zimna shutaf, or 2 times with the cold water. So l'kaksiv umorak v'shutaf umarcha marika sakos and shtifa k'shtifa sakos. I would have thought you have to do the marika twice or the shtifa twice. We say no, you have to do one marika and one shtifa. One's inside the cup and one's outside the cup. So okay, now up to the next Mishnah. Bishal bo kachim v'chulin, o kachim v'kachim kalim. So let's say you cooked in this pot. Let's say you cooked in this pot kachim meat, sacrificial meat, and the chulin meat together. So, or let's say cook kachim kachim and kachim kalim. So if the whatever meat is more strict gives off a flavor into the less meat, then the lesser meat, the less holy meat has to be, or less strict meat has to be according to the stringencies of the stricter meat. And they do not require marika and shtifa the pot. We'll have to see why, because it seems to be a contradictory law. And they're not going to disqualify with touching. Rashi says what this means is, let's say the cow and meat. So what this is referring to, that let's say the ordinary meat became absorbed the taste of the more stringent disqualified meat. It doesn't pass it along through touching, which normally disqualified meat does. And rakik shenalga barakik. Let's say you have a mincha that was a wafer that touched another rakik. So one was disqualified and touched another rakik, v'chaticha b'chaticha. Or if you have a piece of disqualified meat, it touched a kosher slice of meat, and so therefore it got the favor of it. So then we're going to say, the entire mincha and the entire chaticha of meat is not forbidden. It's only forbidden in the place where it absorbed the taste. So how much is that? That's usually like kripa. It's like a finger breadth. So Gemara says, Maika Amar, what does the Mishnah say? What does it mean when it says, okay, Rashi, Maika Amar? But Rashi here doesn't really come. But the Mishnah's question is, if it has a flavor, then the kawan are going to be eaten according to the stringent taste. So basically, if there is enough, if the stringent is giving off a flavor, then the lenient ones are eaten according to the stringent ones. And they do require cooking, cleaning. So this is how you have to read our Mishnah, that if there's flavor, then you have to do all these things. But if there's no flavor imparted, they're not eating like the stringent ones. Ve'im tunim Mariko Shifa. They don't require Mariko Shifa. Ve'im Psulim B'maga. And they're not going to disqualify through touching. So the Gemara says, Nihi de kachi kachim will buy. Okay, it makes sense. The Gemara is saying, okay, I understand if there's not enough kachi kachim in the pot to get rid of, to impart taste, and the kachi kalam are not eaten according to the astringency, and it doesn't require mariko shtifa. Okay, Nihi de kachi kachim will buy, but kachim kalani buy. But kachim kalam should also require it, meaning to say kachim kalam, according to Rabbana, requires mariko shtifa. Amar Baya, my ain't ta'un in the kamar. What does it mean when it says it doesn't require? Kache kachim, it means the kache kachim do not require. Ava kache kalam to unan, meaning to say the kache kachim doesn't require, but the kache kalam require. Meaning to say you have a little bit more time before you do it. Rava Amar, no, a different answer. That our Mishnah is following the position of Hamani Rabbi Shimoni, the Amar kache kalam ain't tunim marika shtika. Follow the position of Rabbi Shimon that says kache kalam do not require marika and shtika. The Gemara says Bishlam or Rava makes sense according to Rava. Aina diktani el kache kachim. The kachi kalam. That's why the Mishnah states, or if you could kachi kachim and kachi kalam, to tell us this halacha. Oh, Abaye, darti lamuli. What is according to Abaye? Why do you need both answers? So the Gemara says, Tzricha. Abaye says you need both. Ditane kachim v'chulin. If it's in the case of kachim and chulin, have I mean a chulin u'demivatle kachim d'lav minayu. I might have thought that the chulim can nullify the kachim meat because it's not like it. Oh, kachi kachim, kachi kalam. But in the case of kachi kachim, kachi kalam, I would have thought that kachi kalam don't nullify. Bitane kachi kachim, kachi kalam. And if it's a kachi kachim and kachi kalam, I mean kachim dalimo v'tule kachim of a chulin emo. I might have thought kachim kalam is strong enough to nullify a kachim, but chulin is not. So therefore, I need both. Tzricha. Rafik shehigia berakik. Let's say a disqualified mincha touched another that was qualified. The pasuk says about the chatas, whatever touches its meat shall be considered holy. I might even think if it doesn't absorb anything from the chatas meat. Tamalomar bibsara, meaning to say it's meat, meaning to say that ache yiboa bibsara, it's not more on top of tzadi zayin on the base until it's absorbed into the meat. So I might think if it touches a portion of the meat, the whole meat is disqualified. Tamomar yiga hanogeya. So it says in the pasuk. It says in the pasuk yiga, which teaches us hanogeya pasuk, that which touches it disqualified. Okay, it said chote chasmakom shabal. He cut off the part that was absorbed. Bibsara. What does it mean in its meat? Below begidin, meaning to say whatever touches its meat becomes kodesh, but not that which touches the gidin, which is like the tendons. V'lo ba'atzamos, and not which touches the bones. V'lo b'karnayim, v'lo b'tolafim, not which touches the horns or the hooves. Yikdash, we always come know that it becomes like it becomes holy. Okay, that impsulahi, if it's disqualified, tipaso, the meat which it touches that part becomes disqualified. V'mksherei, de'achol kachamar shabbat. But it's kosher, it's eaten according to the stringencies of that. Amai, why do we say this? Why do we say if the meat was kosher and it touched the disqualified chatos that you can't eat it anymore? That's the positive commandment to eat the chatos, whatever it was kodesh, come and override the los asay. Amarava ein asay dochas es los asay sheva mikdash. So Rava says the principle of asay dochas los asay does not apply in the base of mikdash. And never be'etzem o tishberu bo, because it says by Korban Pesach you can't break the bones, which means to say that even though it's a mitzvah to eat the Korban Pesach, you're not allowed to break the bones. And so therefore, and Rabbi Shimon Atzi Omer, echad etzem sheish b'moch, echad etzem she'ein b'moch, even if the bones have some meat in it. Amai, but why? Why don't we say that they come along and pushes away the negative commandment? So we see from here, we see a positive commandment does not override a negative commandment in the temple. Rav Ashi says, Yikdash asehu, that the word Yikdash is a positive commandment. Meaning to say that there's both an asay and a los asay here. It's not just asay docha los asay, there's both an asay and a los asay. So the Gemara says, Ashkan de chatas. So now the Gemara is going to go into a brayta. Ashkan chatas to mix kadesh bebalua. I understand why Korban chatos it makes the other meat disqualified because the other meat becomes absorbed from the chatas. Shar kacham, and how do we know it's not just the din of chatas, but all other meats? Amar Shlosh and Rebbe Lazar, those that Torah will law and chatas v'hashem l'mulim with zevachim. The Gemara is going to dash in this verse for everyone. Lo law, ki olah, ma olah tu. So we learn law for all the karbanos from each word in this pasuk, but we're not going to do the whole pasuk. Now we're just going into the whole bright. So now we're just going to cite the first teaching. Ma'olah to unaklei. It teaches just as olah requires utensil, so too kol to unaklei. Every carbon requires a utensil. And the Gemara says, what is Shmuel saying? So what is Shmuel saying? My kli ilema mizrach, or maybe it's not a brisa, it's just a teaching, a memory of Shmuel. What Shmuel is saying? Ilema mizrach, you're saying that it requires a bowl to receive the blood. Biz shalmei tzibur namiksiv b'hu. Vayikach Moshe chatzi adam v'yasem ba'aganot. That's also written by the shalmei tzibur. Elo disake, and it means to say that Shmuel is saying that every korban needs a knife. And how do we know that Ola itself is the only one that has a knife? Gemara says we learn it from Yitzchak. Vayishlach Avram es yado vayikach hasamacheles. That Avram took a knife to slaughter Yitzchak, and there it was called an Ola. V'hasam Ola. Brought up as an Ola in place of a son. So okay, we just did it very quickly. It's Erev Shabbos, Erev Rosh Chodesh, Erev Chanukah. I mean, it is Chanukah. I want to review this on Shabbos Kodesh. Shekoyach.